Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, a comedian who had no experience of politics when elected less than 3 years ago, has suddenly emerged as a war hero. Some in the West has even compared him to the Chinese student who stood in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square in 1989. He has rallied his nation with his addresses and video selfies and given voice to Ukrainian wrath and protest against Russian aggression. While Russian President Vladimir Putin has appeared increasingly adamant and erratic, accusing Ukraine of genocide and talking of the need to de-Nazify the country, President Zelensky, from a Russian-speaking Jewish family, has remained dignified, resolute, and articulate. I am K C Asok from Kaumudy Global. Let us do a little bit of comparison between the two leaders against the backdrop of the Russia-Ukraine war. Zelensky and Putin were both born in the Soviet Union and share the same first names, but that doesn't mean there are more similarities between them. The bitterly personal confrontation between the two leaders is at the epicenter of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, with their personal and political futures as well as their country's fate at stake. 44-year-old Zelensky remains cooped up in central Kyiv amid the Russian bombardment at intimate quarters with his protection squad and closest aides by his side. 69-year-old Putin, meanwhile, sits in the Kremlin receiving visitors, abiding by the strictest protocols. The distance he sits even from close ministers at the giant tables has been widely mocked on social media. It is also rumored that Putin is doing so to avoid infections, as he may be having some terminal illness. The two men have met face-to-face only once, when French President Emmanuel Macron hosted them along with the then German Chancellor Angela Merkel for talks in Paris on Ukraine in December 2019. Since then, Zelensky has become such an arch enemy of Putin that the Russian president never refers to him by name. Putin instead refers to the Jewish president as the head of the Kyiv regime or the leader of a gang of drug addicts and neo-Nazis. French President Macron once drew a stark contrast between the two men, saying Putin chose war while Zelensky is the face of honor, freedom, and courage. While Putin was consolidating his control over Russia in the first years of the new millennium, Zelensky was founding his production company Vartal 95 and building a reputation as one of Ukraine's most prominent showbiz personalities. Just over a year after Putin annexed the Ukrainian peninsula of Crimea and backed separatists in the country's east, Zelensky in 2015 began appearing in a show that catapulted him to stardom. The comedy drama was called Servant of the People and tells the story of Vasil Holoborodko, played by Zelensky. His role was that of a history teacher who becomes president after a rant about corruption goes viral. In 2019, with the country's politics in turmoil, Zelensky entered the contest and won the presidential elections in a landslide, calling his party Servant of the People. However, his coming to power was greeted coolly by Russia and Putin, who never showed much interest in engaging with Zelensky, even after the 2019 Paris summit. Zelensky's years in power, even before Ukraine-Russia war, had been riddled with troubles. In his country, he faced accusations from critics that he lacked experience, employed his former business partners as top aides, and had accumulated offshore wealth. But as a wartime leader, he has excelled, giving almost daily video addresses dressed in a t-shirt and with growing stubble to show he has remained in Kyiv despite the bombardments. This had invoked a sense of patriotism in his embattled country and boosted the morale of the Ukrainian soldiers. While Zelensky, sometimes in military dress, has taken cheery selfies with his ebullient defense minister, Putin has cut a sorry figure with even his close friend and defense minister Sergei Shoigu, kept at a distance at the other end of the notoriously long Kremlin table. Meanwhile, Stewart Patrick, a senior fellow in global governance at the Washington-based Council on Foreign Relations, said Putin had succeeded in turning Zelensky into an international hero. Time magazine even carried Zelensky's comments from an address in Ukraine to the European Union Parliament this week on its front cover, and they translate to "Life will win over death, light will win over darkness." Zelensky has said he fears he is the #1 target of the Russian invasion, but has several times called for talks with Putin as the only way to end the conflict. If anyone thinks Ukraine will surrender, he knows nothing about Ukraine and has nothing to do in Ukraine, Zelensky said in a video address in an apparent message to Putin. "Go home to your home," he said. By the way, Ukraine officials claim that Putin has already declared May 9th as the end of the war in Ukraine so as to match the date when Russia defeated the Nazis in World War II. Russia holds an extravagant Victory Day parade in Moscow's Red Square on that date every year to mark Nazi Germany's surrender and the end of the Second World War. However, there seems to be no end in sight to the Russian war against Ukraine that began on February 24, 2022. Though Zelensky says that the only way out of the war is negotiation with his Russian counterpart, he has been asking more military aid from Western countries. Now, for both leaders, has the war become a war of ego, a war to save their face, or a war to defend their self-respect and pride? But they should remember one thing: the real sufferers and the ultimate losers in this war are their country and the people whose life and properties are at stake.